All right. This Hangout on air is live.
Live in the internet wavelengths.
So live.
It's alive!
Just waiting for the Hangout to catch up with us. Still hasn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how fast we roll.
It's that 8-second delay that the TV networks want for editing purposes.
All right. Okay. So we sound about as good as we're going to sound. So
That's good. Suppose.
Yeah, good being a relative term there, I think.
okay. Gonna creep you out, Seth, by looking straight at you. I'm looking at you, Seth. Just you.
Uh-huh. I'm looking at Audacity, so I don't even see you.
All right, I am recording.
I am recording now.
And so am I.
All right.
So we're all good.
Let's do our 10 count. 1,
Sure.
2, 3,
3,
4,
4,
5,
5,
6,
6,
7,
7,
8,
8,
9,
9,
10.
10.
It got too much for me. I had to tune you out.
You need a little bit of isolation, huh?
Yes. If it wouldn't mess it up, I would play back for you what that was, just so you know what it sounded like. It's really difficult, but it makes lining things out better. Alrighty. Anybody in the chat room? Just us.
Jiggy too dope.
You chased them away.
Okay. Hearing a hum coming over your channel,
Yep.
Chris.
Is it mine?
It's intermittent, man. Are you hearing that, or is it just? I'm trying to decide if it's electrical interference on my end or if you're sending it.
I hear that.
Yeah, when I turn your channel down, it goes away, Chris.
Really?
Oh well.
Nothing's
Hopefully it's something
changed.
we can. I'm sure I can get it in post. All right, here we go.
Does it help when it's off the desk?
No, it's definitely electrical. It's not mechanical.
Huh. That's weird. Nothing's changed on my end. Matter of fact, there's nobody even home, so.
Yeah, it may be. It definitely sounds like electrical interference on my end, but I don't know why it's only on your channel. But I'm not gonna worry about it. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh no, what did I do? I clicked a button. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 188, The Taxman Cometh, recorded April 12th, 2015, and brought to you by Element OP Productions, elementop.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week are both of your stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather Neves, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Good morning and afternoon to everyone out there in the internet lands.
And a big howdy from rainy East Texas, y'all.
I missed you guys. Did you guys have fun without me?
Well, as you'll find out in a little bit, some of our listeners think we had a little too much fun without you.
Uh-oh.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I just want to say, I'm at that age. I had the rare, and I do mean rare, joy of doing nothing yesterday. Here was my day yesterday. I slept until 10 o'clock. I got up and had a late breakfast. I took a nap. I watched a little TV. I took another nap. I had dinner. I went to bed. Now that may not sound like much to you, but in the busy life that is mine, that is pure nirvana. But I'm at that age where doing that caused me physical pain. My back hurts, my joints hurt, laying around, it causes pain. I was having lunch with some friend of mine today, and he complained. He said, I spent all day in the yard yesterday doing lawn work, and I'm hurting. And I said, well, I spent all day doing yesterday, and I'm hurting. So apparently when you're in your mid-40s, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to hurt either way.
I haven't hit that spot yet, but I do enjoy my nothing days, as my daughter calls them. I try to at least make sure I have one a month of do nothing.
Oh, gosh. For me, it's like one every 18 months. It is.
No.
My wife did have a girls' night out, which is great. She's all I'm all for that. I think wives should do that and husbands should do that. But before she left, the girls were like, no, don't leave us with him. No, because I know how to say no. And so everybody ate dinner, and they ate the dinner I cooked. And I wasn't a short order cook. It wasn't, hey, what do you want? Hey, what do you? No. I cooked, and they either ate it or they didn't. And then they were in bed and lights out, and that was it. That doesn't happen when Mama's here.
Right.
You're the disciplinarian of your household.
I like to say I run by the Mussolini method. The human rights take a back seat, but the trains run on time.
That works.
As long as you don't disrupt Facebook, people don't care. So.
Did you see that? No, I'm not even going to go there. That could take us down a rabbit hole even I don't want to go down. So I'm going to stop there.
That's a scary thought, considering what rabbit holes we travel.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to do it, but I want to do it. Okay,
do it.
I'm going to go. Here we go. There was. It's probably old. I don't know, but you know how things resurface on Facebook. It was a grocery store video in Bakersfield, California, of a dad hitting a toddler. And it was. I watched the video. First, I read the comments, which is exactly the wrong order. But it was like there were several. It's one of those things that shows up in several different headlines, right? As different sites try to get your attention, different link bait. And there were things like dad punches out toddler in Bakersfield. Dad breaks son's face. See dad. So and this is where I'm gonna be branded as a monster. But they're in a public grocery store, and it's like 7 seconds of video, and what you see is this kid come tearing around the corner, running at full speed. So clearly something had happened, prior to that. And dad cuts him off and swings at him to stop him. And in the process of stopping him, his hand hits the kid in the face. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't even a slap. It was I'm grabbing at anything I can to stop the kid because he's running amok in a public place. He catches the kid in the face. The kid goes down. He's like 3, maybe 4. Dad jerks him up, hands him to his mom. Mom carries him out of the store. So depending on your mindset, that was either brutalization of a child, and he should have his testicles removed and be forced to, endure punishment for the rest of his life, or that boy got what he deserved. And I'm not going to say which side I come down on, but it was interesting to see how incredibly one-sided the reaction was. None of the comments, none of the posts, nothing I saw said, that's good parenting right there, boy. And I kind of would have expected that in Redneck, Georgia, where I live. But no, everything was, that was brutalizing a child. And so it was one of those snapshots of American society, I think. And not just American. I saw it was posted on UK websites and other things. I traced it down. I did some research on it just because I'm curious about that sort of stuff. And the reaction was universally not only negative, but violently, this man should have horrible things done to him for the rest of his life. Negative.
Wow. That's horrible.
Now I primed it by telling you what happened, right? I gave you my slant on it by saying he was trying to stop the kid and hit him in the face in the process. Another person telling you that story would say that the guy brutally savaged his son for no reason. But I suspect those people have never had a 3-year-old running amok in a store.
Definitely. I was going to say, Mark, there's been a couple of times where I know when my son, who was he was one of those little 3-year-olds that would run around in the building screaming and throwing things on the floor. And we were at one of the local Shopkos, and he was just being a little stinker, for lack of a better term that's not G appropriate. So me and my wife have a standing thing where if the kids are acting up to the point where they're causing the other shoppers to look, then you just lost your right to be in the store with us while we shop. And so one of us will take them out of the store to the car, and they'll sit with them until they either calm down or the shopping trip is over. And we got the biggest compliment from one of the ladies there was an employee and an elderly lady in the store.
Elderly?
Did this. Well, she was over 50. Let's put it that way.
The combination of words there, older and elderly. I like it. I'm going to start using that. Elderly.
It works, right? So anyway, they both looked at me and said, "Oh my God, you're the first parents to have ever done that. Thank you." We weren't violent with him, but we were definitely stern with him. It was like a co-opt strike team to stop him and remove him from the store because he was throwing his body weight into shelves because he didn't want to leave.
I come from the background of physical discipline is appropriate and should be applied often. I mean, I used to joke that if I didn't get a spanking once a day, I'd get out of bed and say, "Mama, you forgot to spank me," because my day wasn't complete if I wasn't spanked. But I also fully admit I deserved every dang one of those. I was one of those kids who was going to push to the limits, and the only thing that was going to bring me back was a chuffing in the ears, right? I needed physical correction. No amount of words was going to do anything. I know me, and right, you might say that I was brutalized, and so I normalized that. It was a bit of Stockholm syndrome. No, it was none of that. It was looking back now with the eyes of a parent, I realized that the only thing that was ever going to stop me was physical correction. Because my brain would get locked into something and I would be off on it, and my focus was gone. There wasn't any way to redirect me short of causing me pain. Now, there's a difference between pain and injury, right? You want to cause pain without causing injury. So I'm one of those horrible parents that beat my children. But one of my rules is, because I'm a big guy, because I tend to have a temper, I've never struck my children out of anger, because I know that's opening a door through which I may never come back, right? I could do injury at that point. So when I find myself angry at my children, and yes, people without children, it happens. You get angry, physically, violently angry at your children, not just frustrated. I have to put that aside and say, we're going to deal with this later, because I know that I can't restrain myself in those moments. That was a rule I put on myself a long time ago, right? Because, I mean, when you're dealing with a kid who's 40 pounds and you're 400 pounds, right, there's a significant difference.
Yeah. Amplitude of magnitude there.
Order of, yes. So
amplitude of magnitude, darn it.
So that's, again, I'm not going to come down on the Facebook guy. I'm not going to say he should be imprisoned, and I'm not going to say he was just displaying good parenting. I'm just going to say that where I come from, it's perfectly acceptable to cause minor short-term pain for disciplinary purposes.
See, I like to look at it as also, what's that? The dog whisperer. What's his name?
I couldn't tell you.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Cesar Lamon? No,
that's him. Yeah, that's Caesar. If you ever watch the way he counteracts a dog who's leaving normal range and going into red zone, that's how he stops them too. It's a momentary stop, poke. No more than a poke or a prod with a foot, but it's enough of a snap moment that whoa, what was that? And that's how my kids are. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of the Caesar's tactics that I've used with my kids.
I also brutalize my pets, if you're one of those people. If you've ever watched a mother dog correct her children in the wild, like wild dogs, feral dogs, or wolves, the verbalization of what you see is, "Son, I will destroy you if you don't fall into line." Mm-hmm. This is not a matter of correction. This is I will destroy you. I will eat you alive if you don't fall into line. That's how mother animals, particularly dogs, handle their young. I don't think they would actually do it. I don't know. Maybe they would. I've never seen a mother eat her young. Maybe they would, but they make the dog think they're going to. So when I am training a new dog, I handle it that same way. I get down in his face and I growl at him and I say, "I will destroy you if you don't do what I say." And it works. I have very well behaved animals.
Yeah, it's amazing what that pack mentality will do.
Let the hate mail rain.
Oh, yes. I actually might get some hate mail off of that one.
No, Chris. Nobody ever hates you. They always love you. Actually,
because I
don't think we've read it on the air, but I got an email. The subject line is "Mark is right," and then when I open it, the first line of the sentence is "Mark, you're entirely wrong." But I think that the idea was to hook me into reading the email by saying that I was right.
It was clickbait for your email.
And nice. Seth would like to point out that we just turned 4.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, last week's recording started our 4th year. So, we have we come a long way? It's either a statement or a question, depending on which episode you listen to. But yes, we're in our fearsome 4s.
Yeah, and my first podcast, The Way of Tech, began 1 year before that. April 1st, 2010 was my debut podcast. So I am a 5-year-old podcaster.
Woohoo!
You're getting on up there.
Well, we're not quite past the point of infant death with a podcast. We need to get past that 5-year mark, and then we'll be all right.
So, Chris, you have a whole bunch of things listed here. Pick one of those.
Just one?
Just one.
But there's so many.
Let's see. Choosing between your children.
I know. I can't do that either. Let's see.
Oh, I can. I have a clear favorite.
I want to. This is just maybe a question. I want to use 2 of them if I can.
Sure.
The meerkat thing. Has anyone done a meerkat?
Well, nobody on this show is going to do meerkat because it's Apple only.
Right.
But it's nothing new. It's Kick. It's I'm trying
stupid.
to. There's the Stickam. It's all. There's been these sites all around. It's a way to create an instant feed, but you share it via Twitter. You tweet a thing that people can click on that link and watch your feed. It's ephemeral. It's not stored anywhere. It's for the moment. And
what's the point? I mean, honestly.
Chris, if you ask that question, you just destroyed 95% of the web. If you can't say what's the point and go to a site like Facebook, what's the point? And Twitter's point is to bombard you with Kim Kardashian retweets and random ads to useless crap. That's the point of Twitter. And Facebook is so you can get your 15 seconds of fame over and over again to your mom, who's the only person who follows you that cares about you. So other than that, what's the point? Sorry, that's my editorialized comment.
Yeah, with Twitter, I can understand. I understand Twitter. I use Twitter. I like Twitter. But Meerkat, I just can't understand. If it's not something that sticks around and there's no way to actually refer back to things that you've already recorded, is there really any point to it? People are just...
Well, I mean, it's all about sharing the moment. And it's not about... And like,
have you guys actually looked at some of the moments that are being shared?
The kids
They're driving in traffic.
The kids these days are into that sort of ephemeral stuff. Snapchat is a big deal specifically because it goes away. If there was an archive of Snapchat like there is on Instagram, it would die. And so I think it's the same thing. Meerkat, people like the fact that they can show a video of themselves driving 90 on the interstate and the cops can't see it later.
I think it's just stupid. But that also goes to the point where, my second point that I wanted to use is, how many times have you restricted a website for your kids yet, Mark?
I have not specifically restricted anything. I have the basic OpenDNS filters that I tuned, and that's it.
Well, my kids just lost YouTube for another 2 weeks, so that'll make 4 weeks that they will not have YouTube in the house. Now, that doesn't mean they can't get to it at school or at grandma's, but in the Neves household, There is no YouTube.
Oh, so that's like a form of grounding you use.
For this particular instance, yes.
Okay.
When I started seeing, I'm trying to think of the right term. My children were starting to emulate the videos they were watching with the attitude to go with it.
Yes.
And I was like, Both me and my wife were at our end of it. We're like, all right, let's have a 1 month banning of YouTube. And I went in and removed YouTube from all of their devices. YouTube is blocked on the DNS level. Yeah, it's amazing how fast kids lose an attitude when they realize that they can't get to something anymore.
Yeah, my kids pretty much live on YouTube, but they have made wise choices about what they watch. And there have been a few times when I've had to come in and say, no, not this. This is unacceptable. And I'm lucky in that my kids don't push that envelope, or at least they do it in such a way that I don't know about it. And as a parent, that's all you can do is hope that they're hiding it well.
See, that's where my kids were. They're too blunt. I love my kids to death, but they're the baseball bat to the forehead blunt kids that everyone usually doesn't like because, they can't tell a lie because that was imbued into them early on. My son, though, has tried a couple of times and failed miserably. So it's fun. Parenthood. Gotta love it.
I just want to do a quick follow-up. Android 5.1 fixed all of my problems that Android 5.0 created. So I would like to say thank you, Google, but no, it's really about time, Google, because all of the problems that I had, you created. So this Nexus 5 device that I have was a fine device on KitKat. It became a crappy device on Lollipop, and now it's a fine device again. It just took a few months of living through the garbage. All the memory leaks and the performance problems and the little just things that made it almost impossible to live with are gone after a 5.1 update. So I did do a complete reinstall, wiped user data and everything. I don't know that you're required to do that to get the benefit of it. Maybe you can do the soft over-the-air update. I chose not to do that. So one man's experience, if you're having trouble with 5.0 or 5.01, 5.1 makes it way better.
That is good to know because right now I've come this close about 3 times in the last week that I was going to root it and cyanogen it because I'm just tired of it. Or just there's a way to convert this into a My HTC into the Google Play edition, and that's tempting.
So I'm sure you could find a ROM out there for your phone ready to go, 5.1. If you don't want to wait for the over-the-air.
Well, the problem with my phone, and the reason I haven't done it yet is because the Verizon company decides that they have it extremely well locked down, so you can't. It's in order. No, it's not an order. It's not an order of magnitude, but it's definitely makes rooting and updating the ROM a pain in the neck.
Right. Because phone companies know best. And let's not forget, this is their device. They're just letting you use it for a couple of years. You didn't buy it.
Well, the next one I will be buying.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of money to outlay up front, but I think it's worth it. And more and more, it's not a big chunk of money. The OnePlus One, the Nexus line, that's not true anymore, the Nexus 6. But the Nexus line prior to the Nexus 6 and the OnePlus One showed that you could have a flagship phone for under $400, which is still a lot of money.
But I would rather pay $400 and own my phone and be able to do whatever I want to it than spend whatever it is for the down payment and then you can't do a darn thing with it.
I mean, other off-contract phones are $700, so $400's a bonus. I mean, a bargain.
Right.
All right, moving on to the listener feedback. Steven says, Nudicles are old news. Says a local radio show, LaGrange Logic with Joey Sauchere, covered this great topic at least 15 years ago. Where have you been? I've been on websites everywhere that don't talk about artificial testicles, and I'm not ashamed of that. That's where I've been.
Okay. I evidently missed a weird show.
Just the last 10 minutes of it. The rest of it was pretty normal.
Yeah, we're not all in the great Twin Cities metropolis to catch shows such as that. We have to make do with limited sites such as Google, Yahoo, Bing, and Facebook. So not everyone's has access to Garage Logic. So, way to rock the trendy world out there.
I said LaGrange Logic. I totally misread that. Garage Logic. Thank you for correcting me. And following up on Steven Seals, David says that we need Chris. Hello, Mark, Seth, and Chris. I've been following the show for a few months, and I like the banner and stories you add to Linux topic, but I was impressed with how fast Mark and Seth turned episode 187 from a normal EDL into a fake testicle talk. Stick around, Chris. You seem to keep Seth and Mark from turning back into college roommates.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
I assure you he would have been right in the thick of it with us had he been here.
Yeah, probably. I would have been throwing my own little bits and pieces in there, but
and it was appropriate because the whole topic was about bits and pieces.
That was the point.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's not called a random link at the end of the show for no reason. That's why I've labeled that the show closing spectacular. So,
and those are usually.
It was a spectacular close to the show.
I don't know. I have yet to hear a better one than the backyard Ferris
amusement
wheels
park
and carnival.
Yeah. I don't know. The poop app was that was a favorite. So
that was a good one too.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of apps, I want to give one more plug to the EDL app that you can find. There's a forum on our website, elementop.com. It's still, like I said, still very much in the beta phase, but I'm super excited about this thing, and we need people to hammer on it. I need people posting comments and using it and listening to the show with it. Features are coming, bugs are being squashed, but what it's going to take is people to get this to the critical mass. So we could go ahead and put it in the store right now, but every review would be terrible because it's not finished yet. So we need people who understand that it's terrible. Tell us it's terrible. That's fine. I don't want you to gloss over the problems, but understand that it's not ready yet. But it is coming along and it's great, and I think it's going to be the best app ever once it's built. Certainly, it's going to be the podcast listening app. That's my prediction for it.
Cool.
So check that out, elementop.com. Click on the forums. There's a link right on the front page that says "Get the app here." Next up, Travis asks about building a Boris box. This has been a topic that's been so popular with so many people. He says, okay, so I know you guys are talking about the Pi versus a heavy user version of the Boris box. Are there any thoughts about the hardware for a heavy use version? My thoughts on a heavy use version. I would assume that a heavy use one would be the cost of a cheap PC setup in order to do its Boris box thing, like unified threat management and other stuff. Since this is what I'm planning to do, I looked into this hardware for this, and I wanted something that would also let me add some internet caching due to my local ISP's 300 gig monthly caps. So to me, that means I need a SATA 6 gig and some decent drives that can be thrashed and cleared regularly. The minimum board I found on this is a mini ITX board with an embedded Atom 2.1 gigahertz dual gigabit NICs on board. Of course, it has to add up to 4 gigs of RAM and a power supply and a case, but for $119, it didn't seem like a bad place to start. Possibly even sub $200 system. Just add your own hard drives and maybe an EDL ISO. Just spitting ideas. What do you think? That's probably overkill, really, on the drive storage. So think about your internet connection, right? So if it's at most, let's say it's a super fast, you got Google Fiber, you've got a gigabit internet connection. You don't need a 6 gig SATA throughput to support caching gigabit internet. Yeah, you can use just regular plain old IDE drives if you can still find them anywhere. But that's the whole point. Use an old machine. In terms of processor, and we talked about this several times in the recent past, any 586 will do just fine. And depending on what you want to do, that's where the RAM comes in. But you stick 4 gigs of RAM in any box, an Atom processor, a 2 gig Atom would be fine. Even an ARM processor. Almost all of the appliances on the web today are running, or home appliances anyway, are running ARM processors. So processing is not a big deal. RAM is more important depending on what you want to do, and storage, I'd say, is not all that important. What do you guys think?
Well, one of the things he said was
ahead,
that
Seth.
he wanted to implement caching pretty aggressively. So if that's the case, then storage is a little bit more important. But
it doesn't have to be super fast. I mean, you need a bunch of storage, but it doesn't have to be ultra wide SCSI RAID stuff.
Right. No, you can go, what's the closest pawn shop? Go find the Core 2 Duo and take 25% off the price there and walk out of there with a headless box that you can then throw whatever UTM ISO you want on there.
I just showed my age by saying ultra-wide SCSI, which not only doesn't exist anymore, but is way slower than SATA anyway.
Right.
But it had geeky cred. So
I would say, the whole idea that Seth and Mark just said, that's about perfect. You don't need a whole lot for doing it. I mean, I'm caching my own traffic here at the house, and I'm running it on an old IBM. I don't remember what the model number is, but it's an old guy. It's it's a Pentium 4 hyper-threaded, so it has 2 cores. And I think it's got 4 gigs of RAM and a standard SATA hard drive, and it does everything just fine.
So the Atom chip you're talking about is a little slow if you're going to use it as a desktop machine, but as a Boris box, it's fine, more than fine.
Because you're going to be running a Unix or Linux core, so it's going to handle a lot more tasks better compared to Windows because you're not doing all the extra fluff of a user interface or anything like that. So yeah, I think I would say the Atom might be a little, like Margaret was saying, it might be a little slow, but you're barely going to feel it compared to what your old router would be.
Yeah, if you're running a blue box router that you bought at a warehouse store, it's probably got a 32 megahertz Atom in it. I mean, that's what they put in those things, and it runs fine
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah, they run fine for a handful of computers. And then last up, Fuzzy sent an email, and he apologized for bringing Linux into our show, and prefaced it with some bacon. There was a picture of Kevin Bacon, a picture of John O'Bacon, and a picture of a strip of bacon. I thought that was funny. It doesn't translate well to an audio podcast, but it made me chuckle. Fuzzy wants to make his own RSS service. Says, I'd like to be able to make an RSS feed within my local LAN, likely with a Pi. I'd want to download YouTube videos from particular channels and then save to my phone's podcast catcher to point to something internal. It seems like it should be simple, but I don't know where to start. Thanks for all the work you put into the show. It never fails to make me laugh. Fuzzy, if you're determined to go in-house, the best thing, if not the only thing, that I know that would do that is Tiny RSS. It's a PHP script that you run on a server, so it'll run on just about anything. I think it should be fine on a Pi. I know Door-to-Door Geek on the Podnuts network has talked about using it. I tried to get some information from him today, but he was out with his family. What right does he have to do that when I need information? And couldn't really give me any specifics. But the way I see it, if he uses it and endorses it, it's going to be stable because he doesn't put up with stuff that isn't. So check out Tiny RSS. It's a small download, web browser configured. But if you don't necessarily want to take it in-house, I would consider something like Yahoo Pipes. That's one of those things they built a long time ago. It's still out there, but nobody knows about it. But Yahoo Pipes is designed to take different bits of RSS and put them together into a feed that lives on the internet. And it's your own custom feed. Like, for example, we have a feed. It's no longer relevant because we only do one show, but we have a feed on the website that's all the Element Opie shows. And it's a Yahoo Pipes. I think it's pipes.yahoo.com. It's really pretty cool, and you can string together any RSS or I think there's other formats that you can export to, but you could take whatever you wanted and not have to download them and store them locally if you don't want to. Now, it sounds like you maybe want to do that and listen to them on your own storage, and that's fine. But if you're not married to doing it in-house on your own hardware, look at Yahoo Pipes. It lives on their servers. It's their RSS feed, and yeah, they might make it go away, but it's been there for over a decade, and I doubt it's costing them more than a few CPU cycles. I don't know why they'd make it go away, but that's what I would do in that situation.
The problem is, Mark, they had forgot about it.
now that I've mentioned
it,
you
told them its days are numbered. So,
it's all your fault, Mark.
Yes, because the high ups at Yahoo do listen to this show. It's perfect for them because it has nothing to do with anything technical.
There you
go. I'll scratch them off our list of potential sponsors.
Oh, Yahoo, you had such potential. And you've done so little with it.
Man, when they redid your My Yahoo page, I just pretty much quit them. I went to a look. They used to, you could have all the theaters you wanted to laid out on your My Yahoo page, and I could look and see in one space all the different theaters I wanted. And then all of a sudden I went there, and that whole section was like, what movie do you want to see? And then you put it in, and then it provides. I was just like, what? So, shame on them. I know it has nothing to do with anything, but neither does most of the show. So.
It fits right in.
Yeah, but actually, it does.
I had a conversation that actually fits here. Imagine that with my soon-to-be 13-year-old daughter. We were talking about browsing the web, and nobody really does that anymore. Just surfing from one side to another. And she said she found an attachment to my wife's KitchenAid mixer that she thought she might like for Mother's Day. And she said, I don't remember how I got there. I just somehow ended up at the KitchenAid website. And I thought that's how the web used to be. You just kind of surfed around before it got too big. And I said, back in my day, using the old folks verbiage, I said I used to spend hours just surfing the web, going from one link to another wasn't looking for anything. Today, people go to the web looking for something, but before there was a search engine, before there was a good search engine, you couldn't do that. And right before that, there was Yahoo. Yahoo was a directory, and you could search their directory. That was sort of the start of searching, but it was nowhere near a search engine for the internet.
Right.
You could go to GeoCities, and you could search around there, but that's how you just bounce from one place to another. I first got my start using the Lynx text browser on my college's dial-in network. So they gave me a modem number, and I could dial in and access the internet using Lynx, Lynx. So that's how old I am. And then it was great or I could gopher also. The idea you just dig down like a gopher. And when the world was mostly text, when the web was mostly text, you could do that. But I remember the first real search engine that I ever heard of was AltaVista, and they had this audacious goal of crawling the entire web once a month, and that was just unheard of. The technology didn't exist to do that at the time. They pretty much invented, or at least were the first people that I ever heard of to talk about the spider, the robot spider that crawled the web, and then WebCrawler, and then Lycos, and these guys all came after. At least that was my experience. Somebody's leaving a comment on the mobile app right now telling me how I've got my history backed up backwards. But that's the way I remember it. Was AltaVista came first, Lycos, WebCrawler, these others came along, and then Google hit the scene and did it faster and better and blew everybody away. And now Google is the default way you find information on the web. But it just made me think that we have lost a piece of that old culture, and that was web surfing, right? So now we have StumbleUpon and Tumblr and these things that artificially do what we used to do naturally and organically.
Do you remember that commercial that was advertising super high-speed internet of like 1.5 meg?
Yes.
I still think is ridiculously fast. But, it was like this guy was just clicking on links, and all of a sudden, you've reached the end of the internet. Go back.
Yeah, and he turned it off and said, his wife says, I thought you were surfing the internet. He says, I was. I'm finished.
Yeah. And that, to me, was the best commercial. I loved it.
And now, the internet is growing at a rate that it cannot be search. No one person has enough seconds in his life to view every page on the internet.
Yeah, because this creation is way too fast. I mean, how many videos are uploaded to YouTube in a day?
It's something like 3 days worth of video every day. maybe more.
That's
now.
just insane.
Well, but how many? If you were to qualify that, how many watchable videos are uploaded to YouTube every day? Then that number all of a sudden becomes 30 minutes.
Yeah, and once you start deduping, things go way down, right? It's 67 copies of the same. I personally believe that U.S. Americans. I went to visit the Smithsonian in 2000, and they gave a stat then that said if you spent 1 second in front of every exhibit at the Smithsonian, it would take you something like 200 years to see all of them. And so the web is several hundred times bigger than that. Okay, on to the tech news. First off, before we do the news, let's do an ad, because I know you audience love so much when we do ads. Let's talk about our friend over at the linuxacademy.com. Their job, their stated purpose, their goal, their reason in life is to take you from being a guy who knows some stuff about some stuff to being a certified Linux professional. They do this, by the way, their step-by-step video courses, well over 200 now, where each one is time-coded and has a downloadable PDF study guide with it so that you can read what you're watching, you can watch what you're reading, and then have this amazing lab platform where you can run up to 4 machines simultaneously in your own protected environment. You could have them talk to each other. You can blow stuff up safely. It runs in Amazon's cloud, so it's lightning fast and super safe, and you're not going to bring down the Pentagon. And they have all sorts of tools designed to put you in control of your learning. So they have courses, they have modules, they have this personal learning plan that lets you decide when you're available. They build a syllabus for you based on your stated availability. If you've got X hours a day for X days a week, you tell them that, and then you tell them what you want to learn, and they construct that for you. All of this stuff using high-quality content certified by third parties as being high quality, and that's all just the basics, right? I talk about this stuff every week, but what I often gloss over is the community around it. The once you get through the doors, you're in this whole community of other people just like you on the same journey as you, and along with with you are the course instructors and the designers and the owners and the people who are creating content are right there with you, saying, "Hey, what content do you want to create? How can we make it better?" And they're responsive, and when you reach out to them, they reach right back. And not only that, the interaction with other people. I think that's where online learning often stumbles, is that you feel like you're going it alone, and you can't learn from somebody else's mistakes, and you can't learn from somebody else's inspirations. And other sites out there just put you on your own track. Linux Academy puts you with a whole community of other people that you can interact with and learn from as you're learning together. And you get all this great stuff for $25 a month. That's their basic rate. $25 for all you can eat access to everything they've got for 1 month. But like anything else in the world, if you buy more, it gets cheaper. So if you want to buy 3 months, it's $65. It's $10 a month off, or $10 total off the cost of 3 months. But if you once you've gotten in, you've tried it out, you're sure you're going to stay a while, buy a year for $215. That's less than $18 a month. You're just not going to find the quality of instruction, the videos, the paper, the lab, the community, the feedback, the family, if I can use that word, for $18 a month anywhere else. And if you go to linuxacademy.com/everydaylinux, you'll even get a break off of that rate. So check them out, linuxacademy.com.
For all your Linux learning needs.
Now on to the news of the week. This one I'm super excited about. The trolls over at Personal Audio, who say they invented podcasting, got a legal slapdown this week. Yay!
Whoop, whoop. Yeah, we were sorry. Basically, we've talked before. It's kind of been a back and forth for a long time. It was the the patent trolls just raking in the cash. But then the government took action and stumbled upon a secret vault of heretofore undiscovered common sense or uncommon sense, and begun repealing some of the more bleeped up. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. The bleeped up internet intellectual property limbo that exists in the country. So now it comes to find out, and you talked about it before, Personal Audio, who about the only thing they own is the ability to sue.
They own lawyers.
The only thing, that's all they do is they sue people. Weird Al, I think, probably wrote a song about them. But yeah, so this one kind of strikes down some of their things, and it didn't really pass the obviousness test. And then, well, anyway, I'll let you put the link in, Mark. You go ahead and talk about it.
Well, this is, if you don't know what we're talking about, I'm surprised, because we've devoted lots of time on the show to it in the past. But essentially, these people said they owned the concept of episodic content downloaded from the web. And anybody who knows anything about life knows that's total BS. So what they say is in 1999 or 96, I forget which, they invented the concept of putting episodic content, one show that continues after another show that continues after another, online and downloading it from a single file. So they say that they invented RSS and not just podcasting, but all news feeds. And as I've stated before, one of the things that in the U.S. court that has to stand up to is what's called the prior art. If anybody has done it before, you can't patent it. And the U.S. patent system is pretty screwed up in that they patent first and ask questions later. So this company was issued a patent legally through the right process. They followed all the right laws, and then they began the process of defending their patent. But nobody had ever investigated the patent, including the patent office, before they did it. So there's this process called inter partes review, which basically is fancy speak for interested parties. Can review something and send that back to the Patent and Trademark Office and say, we think these parts of this patent don't pass the sniff test. So the EFF, Electronic Frontiers Foundation, did a crowdfunding campaign and raised a ton of money to hire their own scumbag lawyers to combat the other scumbag lawyers. And sometimes it's good to have a scumbag on your side. And so they won. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office earlier last week said, you know what, you're right. There are all sorts of websites. CNN, for example, is one of the ones they cited, that have been releasing episodic content using a single downloadable link long before your stuff. And so they just invalidated it. They just struck those parts of the patent. Well, those parts of the patent are what everybody was fighting over. So now they still have a patent on everything else except, it's like having a patent on a car without an engine. So now it doesn't matter. They don't have any teeth to go after anyone else. Now they still have pocketed millions of dollars defending this patent from other people who chose to settle it rather than going to court. Adam Carolla famously spent thousands of dollars defending it before he settled under terms that are not known. But now this patent is officially neutered. They didn't eliminate the patent. It still exists, but the parts of it that are dangerous to podcasters have been cut out. So they essentially have a useless patent now.
Right, and that's a good thing. That means, us little guys like us, when I was really worried about it there for a while when they started suing everybody, and I was like, ooh, are we going to be in the crosshairs? Because we don't have the money to settle, let alone get a lawyer. So I'm just glad to hear that, some uncommon sense was found, and we actually don't have to worry about it as much.
And the hope is that the publicity, the limelight that is garnered by this will make somebody stand up and say, this patent should never have been issued. Let's review the stupid system that caused all this from the beginning.
Well, now you're reaching, Mark. You're reaching.
That's what we hope for.
Yeah.
Yes, one can dream.
We can hope in one hand and poop in the other, and then you can tell me which one fills up first.
Yeah, my cousin used to say that to me all the time.
Thanks, Dad.
My mother still says it.
So. But the neat thing is that scumbags beat scumbags, and this time it was our scumbags that won. So
go scumbags.
The podcast patent is no longer anything that we need to worry about for now. another thing will come along. So anytime you have lots of people making money off of something, somebody's going to try to find a way to take their money away from them.
Yep. Well, it's a good thing we don't make lots of money off of it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some point when I started making money, I'd start worrying about this. And now, good news, bad news. China has an internet cannon, whatever that is.
Yeah, what's
yes,
that?
You know, at first I was like, an internet cannon, you know, so this was like some Yahoo created clickbait kind of thing here. But in the hacker community, it is known as a low orbit ion cannon. To put this, so basically China acquired what every botnet already has, the ability to direct traffic against a targeted website or websites from a massive array of internet-connected devices.
I think it was the anonymous group that coined the phrase low orbit ion cannon. The idea is it's a multiplication attack using DNS is very popular right now, where you use zombie machines to send a lot of traffic to one place. And so the bad guys have had this, the script kiddies, and now the Chinese government has an officially sanctioned one? What the heck?
Well, you know, yeah, but and this article talked about how the government, like the U.S. government, probably has one too. So I don't think we're behind the times. It was just kind of interesting to see the story talked about. And, you know, this kind of came to light as the GitHub. We talked about GitHub being kind of partially taken down over, I think we talked about that last week. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence by people much smarter than I, Doug, that seems to point that the traffic to shut them down came from China. And so it was like they were testing or deploying their internet cannon.
Yeah, so. I love the way this article is written. That sounds like a terrible weapon. Geez, what kind of country would build such a heinous cyber weapon? Well, the United States has a similar program.
Everybody has something similar. You can even go down download Anonymous's low orbit ion cannon and do it yourself. So, go team.
It has become a thing that taking down websites is a form of warfare.
Yeah.
I don't quite know how to handle that. My brain can't process the fact that, oh my gosh, I can't get to my website is now an act of war. But it is.
It could be, yeah. If it was directed about your, say, your banking systems, that would be horrible.
And this next story
would also take down everything else, so...
Sorry to cut you off there, Chris. This next thing is something I'm super excited about and have been. I've talked about it many times on the show. I even did an anemic podcast on my own about it, where the world desperately needs a better battery. Alessandro Volta essentially invented the battery we use today in the 1700s. We've come up with slightly better techniques, but that's all. Well, now these scientists at a university, Stanford University, say that there's a flexible battery that recharges in a minute.
Nice. Yes, it recharges basically 60 times or more faster than the lithium-ion battery that's in wide use today, and it can maintain its charges like 7,500 times before it loses its capacity, as opposed to lithium ions that can only do it about 1,000 times. And no, granted, they haven't quite got up to consumer large scale, but it's using aluminum ion, and it makes it flexible.
Which is cheaper and safer.
Yes, cheaper and safer, and you can like drill holes in this and not lose charging capacity. Imagine drilling holes in your chargeable battery today. You know, you would spray toxic chemicals in addition to destroying the battery. So, but one of the points I was going to. Yeah, one of the points I was going to bring up is if this battery is bendable, all of a sudden then you know the form factor of design becomes even much more wide open, because you don't have this cube somewhere. It can kind of be this jelly Play-Doh-like substance that you can cram it into a couple of centimeters here and a couple of centimeters there, and then you can have a battery that just kind of fits wherever there's open space.
And you combine that with the flexible displays that are in development, and you literally have a foldable phone not far away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually someone who's done that. I was watching one of Leo's shows, and they actually showed the phone that was bendable because they used an OLED display and this type of a battery. Right. You could actually bend the phone in half.
So
yeah,
it's out there.
So a typical lithium-ion battery right now can be recharged about 1,000 times, more or less. So let's say you charge your phone once a day. That gets you 1,000 days, or just over 3 years of life out of it. Most of us, that's about right. You keep a phone battery about 3 years, then it starts losing its charge, and then you can either replace the phone or replace the battery. Most Americans replace the phone at that point. Well, this thing can last 7 times that. So you're talking 21 years without any reduction in the charge, and it charges in 60 seconds. Now the problem right now is it's about the same voltage as a AA battery, so about 1.2 volts. So not anything fancy, but gosh, how many things in your house run on AA batteries? I have tons of things. It's one of the staples on our shopping list is picking up AA batteries. If I can recharge those in 60 seconds for 21 years, yes, please.
Yeah, and we talked about this really isn't even Gen 1. This is beta of this battery. So in a couple of generations of this product, and is a generation 10 years or 1 year in this, I really don't know, then you're going to be up to bigger devices, longer charge, more power, all that kind of stuff, and has the amount of power required in today's electronics continually falls. Then you're looking at, we keep looking for the electrical breakthrough that solves energy problems for the world. Maybe there's not the breakthrough. Maybe it's a bunch of different things that add up to the breakthrough.
So let's say you take these foldable batteries and you put them in your electric car, and they're small and they're thin. They're like the size of a business card in these pictures. And let's say you wrap them around the entire superstructure of the car. So you've got your metal covering the car, fiberglass, whatever it is, and these things are just stuffed in every crevice. They're in the carpets. They're in the curve of the seat. They're everywhere. Now you have the capacity to have a big charge that you can recharge quickly, and you add 1.2 volts times several thousand, and you've got something there. So even in this infantile state of development, you could do this, and if you smash your fender, you lose some of your charge capacity because you've damaged those, but not much, right? Like Seth said, you can punch a hole in it without significantly affecting it. So you now have this technology which doesn't weigh much, doesn't add much to the overall expense or difficulty of making this car, and you no longer have to have a whole bunch of batteries stuffed in a trunk somewhere.
Sure, and you don't have to worry about it blowing up if someone gets in a car wreck with you.
And I'm sure I'm not the first person to have thought of this. I'm sure that once you expand, let's say right now they're like the size of a business card, right? So if you make that thing, instead of using thousands of them, you just make a really big one, and you just wrap, say, a DC-10 in it. Now you've got an electric-powered jet. How cool would that be?
That's kind of
well, I look at it. Suppose suppose electric cars are the norm, and you're going to be going on a longer trip. You just take something the size of a briefcase and you put it in your trunk, and you lost a little bit of hauling capacity, but you've increased your range, miles. So
So super exciting. Anything that frees us from the tyranny of power. I've said many times that I think in the future, power will be beamed down from space. We will have solar converters that are beaming power everywhere we go. And it'll be like satellites, like GPS. Everywhere you go, it's there, but it'll be powering our devices, and batteries won't matter anymore. But that's my prediction for when my grandchildren are my age. But right now, this is something that could have an impact in a few years, like 2 or 3 years. We might be seeing these replace laptop batteries.
And that would be really cool. Could you imagine having a battery that was that fast of a charge? That would just mind-boggling. What you could do with it with I'm out of juice. Oh, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, so battery life then becomes less important when you can charge it in a minute from dead to full. So even if you don't have you get down to 50% and you drop your laptop in the cradle long enough to go to the bathroom, when you come back you're fully charged again.
Yeah.
So it changes life dramatically. Your phone too, right? If you add say Qi charging to that, where you can just lay it on a surface and it charges in a minute.
Let's go one more step bigger though. Let's go with the idea of having a little power jack in your house that when you walk in the door, it automatically shoots power into it.
Yeah.
Extended Qi.
This makes the smart watch more practical.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. My very rarely, but sometimes my watch does die throughout the middle of the day, and it charges quickly, but it's still about an hour from dead to full. If I could change that to a minute. Now it becomes completely irrelevant how much, how often. So you can buy them all over the place, little batteries that'll recharge your phone. Everybody could buy one of those, and everybody can spare a minute.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if they figured out a way to run off of our biochemistry.
Yeah, well, now we're going. Now we're going to Dick Tracy tech, which, by the way, I'm wearing Dick Tracy's watch. So let's not get too crazy about it. Here's something I don't understand. BitTorrent websites.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting and they have it was a closed alpha, now it's an open beta. So what they are doing is they are looking to basically host websites that are not in a centralized location. So, I'm sure there will be some centralized database, something other like, the Pirate Bay doesn't really host the data, but it hosts the links that tell you where the data is. And so you go there, and then I kind of think it's cool. It's the ultimate, you talk about capturing the founding spirit of the web. BitTorrent browser would be totally it, because you're cruising YouTube, but you're not cruising Google servers, you're cruising people who have a YouTube account's computers. So it makes the web a lot more decentralized, and all of a sudden, an outage on YouTube doesn't mean you can't access stuff. You're just, because you're not accessing their site, you're accessing the site from somebody 2 doors down from you, you're going to be able to see super fast, versus somebody across the country, then it's going to be a lot slower. So I just think it's kind of cool. I'm looking forward to the BitTorrent browser.
The cynic in me that sees this as specifically for and by people who want to host illegal content. But if say you're in China, what we would consider everyday normal speech in the U.S. is illegal content. So I'm not saying that it's all about kiddie porn, but this is a way to host things that are not legitimate among your governmental agency. That's the way I read this.
And not just illegal. It could be also there could be the moral factor that comes into play too. You could be putting things up there that are immoral, and because it's a decentralized network, you would hope for more being anonymous, but there again, you still have to give something your IP address to get data back.
So things essentially become self-replicating and self-redundant, and what the web was designed to be. I think it's cool. It's an interesting experiment. I don't know. There's all kinds of legal ramifications that come from this, even for regular content, right? So like YouTube, you were talking about, Seth. The only reason YouTube can get away with some of the stuff it does is because it has servers in different countries with different content on it, based on the rules of that country. So when we start no longer having servers or having distributed servers, the legal landscape gets really interesting.
And really great.
Then, who would really love this is an ISP such as a Charter or a cable company. Then they're not having to, that data comes into their network once, and then you're not leaving their network.
It would be amazing for Netflix
Yeah.
Suddenly all their bandwidth problems go away, but a whole new host of DRM problems come up.
Right.
But that's where they have those scumbag lawyers.
Yeah, something like YouTube would be a perfect fit for this. And I'm not saying, but where you have individual people posting content, instead of posting content to a centralized server, they're just advertising content. So it could kind of change the way, and so you wouldn't go to YouTube. You would have cat lovers, and then so all the cat lovers are hosting sites on everybody, and then you would have dog lovers, and so you just know you're segmented to that group of the community. I don't know. Like I say, will it come to anything? I don't know, but I think it's kind of cool, and I hope it works well.
I'm a fan of anything that looks at new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And so we have the client-server model just because we had the client-server model. I mean, the guys who invented the internet used that model, and that's what we've had. There's a client, there's a server. You send things from one to the other. More and more things like Meerkat, for example, we were talking about earlier, is client to client. And so the BitTorrent people want to take that a step further and make web pages be client to client. I think it's a great idea. Anytime you're challenging the status quo, I'm for it. But I wonder if the larger entities in the world, governments and non-governmental agencies, will allow this to be something that takes off.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But like I say, to me, this is the more founding intent of the internet. I mean, what was the purpose of the internet? You wanted a decentralized system of communication that could survive a nuclear attack.
Yep.
Well, if everything is hosted in a centralized location, then you're probably not going to survive a nuclear attack. So enter the BitTorrent model of everybody has a little bit of it, so you might lose some stuff, but it will keep going.
Right. This next one, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just kind of funny. Even the mighty stumble.
Yes. If you might have noticed a couple of days ago that you had difficulty receiving Gmail on your mobile device, and that was because Google allowed their root certificate for Gmail to expire. So, I guess that's going to be paid position at Google and not something the interns manage anymore.
Yeah, and that's Google has been on the cutting edge of making sure people have their secure certificates in place, and then they slipped. That's a pretty public oops, but it happens.
It was just kind of funny. So, like I say, every company has done that in some way. So they aren't the first, and I'm sure they won't be the last.
All right. I need to pause for just a minute. That weird clicking thing is back. I haven't had that problem in a long time, but I need to stop. So hold on.
Okay.
I haven't had that problem once.
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay. All right, and still sticking with the Google verse, Chrome Chrome is doing a little spring cleaning. They talked about the story we did, I think, last week, was Android malware and how they've cleaned out some things. Well, now they're turning to their own Chrome web store.
Yes, they have recently purged 200 extensions from the Chrome store. So, and these are kind of things that do like ad swapping or ad injection to control what website you go to. So this is kind of good news for Google that they cleaned up the store and got rid of this, but it was kind of bad news that they got in the first place. So it's just one of those things. The security is there. The criminal continues to get smarter as the good guys upgrade their defenses. So Google has raised the bar on malicious and muckware in general. So yay, Google.
And just a reminder, most of these, if not all of these things, didn't come from the Chrome Web Store. These were other apps. These were Chrome apps written by third parties. So Google would like to remind you that you always open yourself up to risk when you sideload, both in Android and Google. And also, let's talk about Firefox plugins and things like that as well. You're giving people a lot of power when you install one of those plugins, and you need to make sure you know who they are.
And that you know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah. Well,
but you can't just kind of throw them out, because we're asking people to sideload as we beta, because there isn't a store for beta software. If there was an official store that you could, and if it was called Beta Chrome or something where, we're putting this in beta, don't leave a review saying it's bad because we know it's bad, it's beta. But if there were some official way to do that, so there is a problem that you can't just get rid of sideloading. You have to have some other way to do it. So there's deeper issues than just don't sideload.
And if anybody cares, the Ubuntu phone is out, and not in the U.S. yet, though.
But you can order it. It's it's not like flash sales where we have 10 phones for sale, or whatever. It's like it's just on their site and it's available for anyone to order. You can go get it. So, yay! Finally, there's some choice in the mobile phone marketplace. It's taken a while, but we're getting there.
I'd like to be excited about this, but I can't.
Come on, it's Linux on a phone.
The power of a phone is the ecosystem. And there are tons of Linux apps, right? Linux on a phone, awesome. How many of those apps are designed for mobile use, for phone use? 0.01%. It's just because it's not a market that has existed yet, there's not an ecosystem for it yet. So I'm having a hard time getting excited about a phone that's not going to be able to do phone stuff for a while. I understand you need the hardware before the software can come. The original iPhone couldn't do much either. It was essentially a web browser in your hand. So I get that this is just growing pains, but it's really hard for me to get excited about this phone that doesn't have an ecosystem.
Right.
And I'm going to hear from Linux lovers, and I am one, by the way. I'll remind you, the name of the show is Everyday Linux. I am a Linux lover, but most of the stuff I do on Linux every day does not translate to a small 5-inch interface at all. And there've been Linux on phones for a while. MeeGo, it's been around, and there's a reason it didn't take off. And having a new handset isn't going to solve these problems.
No, and then if you look at the specs for this guy, it's not even that great of a phone.
Yeah.
8 gigs of internal memory. That's pretty small. That's a low-end phone anymore. Just looking down the list, there's some things that are nice, but only a 2,000 milliamp battery. I mean, you're not going to work all day on it, but it's really early beta stuff. I still don't think it's fully baked. I'm happy to see it's available, but I would never get it yet.
Yeah, it's definitely not a flagship level phone, but for the price, it's not that bad. And as phones become more and more powerful, we are almost to the point to where you can just hook up an external display. And what they tried to do before, and the phones just couldn't handle it. Yeah, the Atrix. It was not powerful enough to do it, but now we're getting to the point to where you're walking around the computer. It's just you have a tiny interface. You need to plug it into a bigger interface somewhere. And so as that becomes more the norm moving forward, then it would be nice to have a fully baked desktop OS running your phone that can do desktop OS-y stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those questions I'm asked because I'm a tech guy. I get it. A couple times a month, if not once a week. Somebody will ask me, what phone should I buy? Which is better, Android or iPhone? Or I see you've got it, or what phone do you have? Some variation of that question. And what I invariably tell people is whatever ecosystem you're in, buy that phone. If you have a Mac and you live on iTunes and you're in the Apple world, buy the iPhone. The Android phone will limit you. If you're a Google user and you've got Google Docs and you're a Gmail guy and you're into Google Plus, the Android phone is the better way to go. An Apple phone will limit you. If there is no ecosystem right now for the Linux phone. What was it? The Nokia, I think M900 has been able to run straight up Linux for a long time. Now I understand the whole point of the Ubuntu phone is to have a mobile interface. So they're trying to dog food this problem, and I get that. But it's a developer phone. It's not a consumer phone. I just don't think it is. And I can't recommend. I can't imagine myself recommending it to anybody. But also, I don't recommend, for example, Windows tablets to anybody. The Surface Pro, for example, that costs as much as a laptop, that is as heavy as a laptop, and has a keyboard like a laptop, but can't do what a laptop can do. Why on earth would you buy that thing?
You shouldn't. That's why we don't recommend it.
So it's all to me about how useful is it. And this phone is a developer phone. People get these in their hands. They make it useful. Great, I'm all for that. But I think Ubuntu should be subsidizing that. If they really want developers to have these things and to make this platform, they should be, if not giving them away, heavily subsidizing them. And they're not. They're trying to treat it like a commercial release when there's just not a market yet. And so for that reason, I'm out, to quote Shark Tank.
Well, and I mean, also you have one Ubuntu phone. So yes, there isn't a super serious demand, but it is out there. And so, the thing is, you don't have to have a very large piece of the mobile market to be successful, or to at least be break-evenable, sustainable. So maybe will this garner enough of a market to show that it exists, or was it we gave it our best shot, we reached the mobile world, and then we died? I don't know. Time will tell. But yeah, so like I say, yay choice.
Because what the world needs is more choice.
Yeah, and then now someone's going to take their ball and go home with it and fork it, and then we'll have the Mint phone.
Yeah, that's not even a joke. That will happen.
Oh yeah, I know it's going to happen. Yeah. And then we'll have the same problem we have with desktop on Linux, is phone for Linux, or Linux for phones, or whatever.
Right. Next up, the Raspberry Pi is going into space. How cool is that?
Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool. The Raspberry Pi is getting a couple of their tiny computers into space coming up soon, and they're having a contest. It's kind of they're calling it the AstroPi. Yeah, you kind of got to be in the Great Britain geographical area for this to work, but there's like two different groups. One, there's like children in school can like submit ideas, and the best ideas get coded by the Raspberry Pi Foundation to run on the Pis in space. And then for the more secondary, like high school level, they will be submitting their own programs to run. And it's kind of cool. You can have a code set running on your computer down here, and then versus one running on space station. Does it produce the same results? Does space affect the way the Pi works? They're going to be attaching some small sensor suites to it to measure, temperature, barometric pressure, stuff like that, so you can compare those readings that are in the space station versus readings down here on Earth. And so it's kind of a way to show what the Raspberry Pi can do, interest kids in not only computing but in space exploration at the same time. I think it's a really cool thing. Go Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, so they're taking a regular Raspberry Pi and putting an extra board on it that has a gyroscope, an accelerometer, a magnetometer, a temperature sensor, a pressure sensor, barometric pressure, humidity sensor. It's got an RGB display on it, 8x8, so very small, like a bedside clock type display, and a mini joystick for interfacing with it. So here's the piece of equipment. You kids, school children across Great Britain, come up with some cool experiments to do with it. On a platform that you can afford that a school can afford to give you, or that your parents can afford to buy for you. this is great. Anything that gets people interested in space again, I'm all for.
Yeah.
This
cool.
combines the space and the maker communities all in one, and that's a win.
Well, it should be a win. Let's see. Let's hope it does. I can't wait to see what they. I wonder how public they're going to be with the things that they're putting out.
We'll find out. Time will tell.
Yeah. Like.
Who was it? Were you going to say something, Seth?
No, not really.
All right. The Department of Energy looks into supercomputers. I don't even understand this headline. Seth, clear it up for me.
What did I put for the headline? Oh, yeah. DOE looks to up the supercomputer game. So the Department of Energy has announced their contract for the next supercomputer, and they are looking at something in the 180 petaflop range.
Wow.
Just to, I had to go back and look the last time, and we covered these lists when they came out. November 2014 list, the fastest supercomputer in the world clocked in at 33 petaflops. Now this one, it will be a couple of years before it's up and going, but they are looking at 180 petaflops, which is basically 18. But it will only use 2.7 times as much energy. So they are really seeking to maximize their supercomputing dollar. And, you could point out that the energy savings alone, even if they ran the exact same calculations they were running, the energy savings alone would probably be enough to pay for it. So, they're looking to have a secondary computer that only runs at the 8 petaflop range. They're getting 2 of them. So 180 petaflop.
So a petaflop,
that's freaking fast.
By the way, is a trillion or 1,000 million, depending on whether or not you're English or American, operations per second. So 1 trillion floating point operations per second. Floating point being division, multiplication, advanced math. So that's a lot. So 15 trillion. No, what was the number you said, Seth? 180 trillion operations per second. That's fast. Almost as fast as the human brain.
Yeah, that's nuts. I can't wait to see what comes up next after that one, to see if they can break into a different level of petaflops.
What's after peta?
I have no idea.
Exa?
I don't remember.
Exaflops?
Something like. But it'd be crazy. Could you say that? Oh, look, I have a supercomputer in my backyard that does 8 exaflops.
If you're ever bored sometime and just want to learn something pedantic, Google the difference between 1,000 million and trillion, and you'll see that there's, much like many things, there's a continental divide. The North American continent calls it a trillion, and the European continent calls it 1,000 million. And there's mathematical reasons why both are correct and both are wrong.
Huh.
Last story.
We should have a corner for you, Mark, that says Mark's Corner, and you could serve up all those extra little tidbits like that.
Mark's extra weirdness. The last story of the night, Valve showing some love to their developers.
Like always.
And actually, not just their developers, but developers of the Mesa community. They kind of did this with the Debian community, where they kind of unlocked the Valve store. But one of the cool things about this is they are giving the developers all current and future Steam releases. So kind of pretty cool. The Mesa 3D library is pretty much mainly used in gaming, but it's just kind of a centralized Linux library. And Valve is saying, hey, thank you for that. We want to show you some love. We do games, so here, have access to every game ever on our system.
Yeah, and of course they're trying to for the next Christmas buying season, they want the Steam machines to be a thing. So by releasing these to developers will see where it's crap and be what's the word I'm looking for? Compelled to fix it. A developer can't see something bad and let it go. And they know this, so they're relying on the compulsions, the OCD of a subset of programmers to fix their problems. Here's all our games. Play them, see what's broken, and fix it. It's a great ploy. You're using people's neurological defects against them.
Well, and that sounds just like what gaming does in general, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it just goes to show that Valve is standing behind their developers and anyone who's going to develop for them. So I think it's cool. I'm hoping that we actually see some big benefits coming from them unlocking their stores for developers.
Are you in line to buy a Steam machine, Chris?
I am currently, I wouldn't say I'm in line for one because my current gaming rig kind of beats the pants off of most of the Steam boxes. So when my gaming rig is aged out, I'll probably be in the line for getting a Steam box instead.
And by then, it'll be Steam box version 4 or 5.
Right. Well, 2 or 3 probably. I mean, I was just talking with my wife last night how now that I'm in this new job role that I've, 9 months into it now, I don't do any of the heavy work that I used to do on the machines that I have. So I was actually talking about downgrading my portable laptop, my testing machine, from the 17-inch behemoth of a laptop down to like a 13 or a 14-inch laptop with, solid states and new RAM and not deal with a 17-inch behemoth anymore. So it's weird how your day-to-day usage shifts with a large change, like, say, a job or family.
Any excuse to buy new gear, Chris. I applaud you for coming up with this one. It's a good one, but you just want to buy a new laptop.
Yeah. Gotta get your spousal approval somehow.
All right, and that's the news of the week. Seth, tell us what happened this week in computer history.
Well, this week in computer history, I have personal ties to. Sorry, I just lost it here. April the 13th, 1974, Western Union, in cooperation with NASA and Hughes Aircraft, launched the United States' first commercial geosynchronous communication satellite, WestStar 1, and my dad was a longtime Western Union employee. So, go Dad, yay Western Union, yay capitalism in general.
Yeah, it was all about sending money to people, apparently.
Well, I mean, Western Union was, and they really kind of screwed the pooch, so to speak, and they bet all their money on the telegraph and didn't really get involved in telecom or diversify in the way AT&T did. But back in the day, a Western Union tech out-earned an AT&T tech hands down. But then the telegraph died, and they had to come up with other ways to make money. Thus, the singing telegram and the send money via Western Union that PayPal kind of killed.
It's still a thing, though. If you need to send money, Western Union is still a thing. It's also a very expensive thing.
Yeah, and you can pay bills through them as well. But yeah, it's very expensive. So, but Dad has a pension, so he's got guaranteed money for life.
So the idea, the geosynchronous satellite is it's really a revolutionary idea. So prior to that, satellites orbited the Earth at a given rate. Well, this was the first geosynchronous satellites that the rate of orbit was such that it was always above a certain spot on the Earth. So it orbits at 24.25 hours or whatever it is a day, so that you always knew there was a satellite right above you. Now that's everywhere. The entire GPS system, the satellite TV system, communications there, that's the standard. And we don't have roving orbits on satellites very much. There are some, weather satellites, things like that. But geosynchronous is sort of the standard. But somebody had to do it first, and it was Western Union. And again, if you're going to communicate, you want to know that there's always a satellite above you, and not want to wait until it comes into range and goes out again. Kind of a cool idea.
Yep.
And that's also how we have DirecTV.
Yes. So there's sort of like an air traffic control for space. I didn't know if you knew this, but different to achieve that geosynchronous is an altitude as well as a speed. So there's like lanes in space. We have certain satellites and certain height ranges and certain in other height ranges And I just think it's cool that, since Sputnik, since the 1950s, we've been throwing crap out into space. Some of it comes back down, some of it doesn't. But we've developed over time these lanes, just like on a highway. There's certain bands that your satellite will be in. You got to make sure it doesn't crash into some of the other crap up there in space. Kind of interesting to think that there's. You often think of the precision of NASA and the precision of spaceflight, but you never think of necessarily having to make sure that you end up in the right spot, that you don't run into something else. Space is vast. That's why it's called space. But the low orbit, Earth orbit, is getting crowded. And so I think in the near future we're going to literally have an air traffic control for space.
Well, and you can also I saw it on a Google Earth view or something. You can see the satellites, and as you go out further, there's more or less of them. So you can kind of look and see, because that's some department at NASA's job is to track every nut and bolt that fell off of the space station or some satellite that hasn't fallen into orbit. And there was an international uproar of sorts years ago now when China tested an anti-satellite weapon on one of their satellites, in how much space junk it created when they destroyed one of their satellites in orbit, rather than sending it on re-entry to burn up in the atmosphere. So,
and all orbits decay without help. So all of that stuff will fall back to the Earth or spin out into space eventually. But now we've got to track this stuff that is on whatever trajectory it was on when it blew up. So it, and then there's comets and asteroids that we're not even looking for. One of those is going to come someday and smash into us, and we're not going to be looking at it because we don't look up anymore. We look out and we look down, but we don't look up.
We look down at our phones. So.
Yes. And this next one, Seth, I took a peek at it ahead of time. This, for a history geek like me, would cause me to lose a great deal of productivity, thus making you look like a better hiring option.
Yeah, I came across this and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Something I did not, I'm a history buff. I love trivial history because I'm a trivial kind of guy, so it fits me perfect. I did not realize that there were no photographs taken when Lee surrendered at Appomattox,
which happened this week in history.
Yes, it happened this week in history, but it really wasn't a technology thing, so that's how come it didn't make the This Week in History thing, but I wanted to throw it in here. But there was one guy who kind of sketched it, and so he just, he has drawings of different things. There's Lee walking off. There's the Union soldiers sharing rations with Confederate soldiers, Confederate forces giving up their muskets, things like that. And it was just kind of cool, whenever I saw it, I was like, well, I guess I never did see a photograph of it, but there were no photos at that day, So it was kind of cool. You can look and see this guy's sketches of it, and that's the only visual record we have of one of the most important events in American history.
If you go to the museum, I haven't been, but a friend of mine went and posted a picture of the last thing you see as you walk out the door is the question that really defines American culture, is what was started that day and what ended that day. And it's an open-ended question. So the Civil War ended. Slavery, for all intents and purposes, didn't end that day. It had ended in the North prior, and it took a while for that to take hold in the South. So did we start a new era of full equality? If so, are we there yet? Did we end an era of looking down on your fellow man? If so, are we there yet? This day, while we don't often spend much time on it in our history classes, we just note that Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse on this date. It's a bigger deal. I've been studying the Civil War era lately. Just it's kind of the bent I'm on. Reading several books about it in the recent months, and it's such a, like you said, Seth, a pivotal time in the history of not just America but of the world, because the way we interact with each other defines how we interact with the world around us. But this was really important, and it doesn't get enough time. So, and ironic that there are no records of it other than this guy's relatively crude sketches, because he was just drawing in a hurry.
Right, and he was like an official kind of correspondent, so, and, considering he didn't say, y'all hold that for 10 minutes while I sketch, his sketches they're actually pretty good. Not that much better than I can do takes much, but it far exceeds what my best effort would be able to do. So, yes, on April 9th, for everybody out there who was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that date isn't important in American history anymore. So, but April the 9th is when that happened. 150 years ago. So this was the sesquicentennial, there's a good word for you, of the Lee's surrender, which he was the overall commander, but he was only in physical command of one army. But when he surrendered, everybody else realized, it's time to give it up too. But just because we're Texas and we're awesome, the last official engagement was a couple of weeks later on Texas, and of course the Confederates won because Texas rocks. So there you go. See if that'll generate any hate mail this week.
Yeah, still.
Matamoros Ranch, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, if I remember my history, Lee didn't actually have the authority to surrender on behalf of the government, but he was the core of the fighting force. As he laid down his weapons, the battle could no longer be won.
Yeah, because he was in charge of the army. So yes, he didn't have the legislative authority to surrender, but he had the military authority to surrender.
All right, and that's our show, folks. So this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can feed back to us. elementop.com. Click the Contact Us button. Thank you for the feedback, Seth. Click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. That will send a nicely formatted email to me that gets priority in my inbox. If you want to do it yourself, if you don't trust me, send an email to edl@elementop.com. That goes to all three of us, and we will see that. Also, if you'd like your voice to appear right along beside ours, 559-IM-OPI is our Google Voice number. Leave us a voicemail there, and we will put you on the show. We love having you with them. It sounds trite, but it's true. You are the reason we do this show. So the best thing that you could do to help us out, above all else, is tell other people about the show. Rate us on iTunes. I know that's a lot to ask for this audience, but go to your grandma's house where she's got iTunes and ask her to let you borrow the machine for a minute. But rate us on iTunes. Rate us on whatever system you use. I was talking with somebody in the chat room this week that uses some command line script to reach out and download our files directly via command line onto his machines. He's not going to be able to review us anywhere. But if you use something like Stitcher or FM Radio or any of those, let people know about our show and spread the word. We hope you like it enough to tell other people about it. If you don't, if you do, tell them. If you don't, tell me. So, Seth, Chris, as always, you were great hosts, the best I could afford, and I'm glad to have you here. And I'm going to say that ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
Later, y'all.
See you guys.
All right, we've had 4 or 5 live viewers, which is actually high for us, popping in and out throughout the show. So thanks for being with us, live viewers, and we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat internet.
I guess we just need more Nudicles references to really stir it up.
That's what brought people in.